Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Hey everyone, Alex here, welcoming you to Connecting the Dots.
And Morgan, right here with you, ready to unpack some really interesting tech stories shaping things today.
It is Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. And quick check-in from Sacramento, looks like another beautiful sunny day shaping up. We're heading up to a high of 87 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, nice here. But while we're enjoying the sunshine, it's a bit more, let's say, dynamic elsewhere across the country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, expecting some heavy rainfall, even severe thunderstorms, stretching all the way from the mid-Atlantic up into southern New England.
Okay.
And more storms popping up in parts of the plains and the middle Mississippi Valley, too. Oh, and a heads up for the southwest dangerous heat is really building there, so, be careful.
Wow. Okay, so stay aware and definitely stay safe out there. All right, let's look at the market front for July 8th. The Dow Jones closed at 44,350.97. Saw a slight dip for the day, just 0.06%, but still holding a positive trend for the week. It's up 0.75% since June 30th.
Right. And the S&P 500 kind of mirrored that. Closed at 6,232.25, also down just a tiny bit, 0.03% for the day. But yeah, showing a healthy weekly gain too, up 0.63% since June 30th.
And Bitcoin, always interesting to watch that one, closed at 108,630.51, actually managed a gain for the day, 0.32%.
Okay.
And a pretty strong jump for the week, up 2.77% since July 1st. Seems like there's still quite a bit of capital flowing into crypto.
Seems like it, yeah. Always volatile, but interesting.
Definitely. Okay, and now for some local news that makes us happy. Great stuff for San Francisco Giants fans.
Yeah, what happened?
Our Giants pulled off a solid 3-1 win against the Philadelphia Phillies yesterday, July 7th.
Yes. All right. That's fantastic news.
Totally. Tyler Rogers got the win on the mound, and Matt Chapman was just really on point at the plate, went 3 for 4.
Wow, 3 for 4. Nice. That's a great performance. A well-played game.
Absolutely. Okay, so with that quick pulse check out of the way, let's jump straight into what's really moving the tech needle today. This is straight from our internal Snarful Tech article report, what we call our Morning Star.
Right, our daily digest of the critical tech developments we've curated for you.
Exactly.
So, our first big story takes us into that really complex intersection of technology, global power, and, well, speech. Today we're talking about X, formerly Twitter.
Right.
And its ongoing clash with the Indian government over content.
Yeah, this one really throws a spotlight on the immense pressure these global tech companies are under. So X was ordered by the Indian government to block over 8,000 accounts within India.
8,000, wow.
Yeah, and the key detail here, the one that really stands out, is X's claim that they faced, and I quote, significant fines and imprisonment for their local staff if they didn't comply.
Oof. That's not just a legal threat, is it? That's direct pressure on their people on the ground.
Exactly. It's incredibly aggressive.
Yeah. It is. And X confirmed they've, reluctantly started restricting access to these accounts, but only within India. They made it pretty clear they disagreed with the demand.
Right.
Called it censorship of existing and future content and contrary to the fundamental right of free speech. So they're complying, but like you said, under duress and making their protest very public.
So they comply, but they protest. Is this just like covering their bases legally, or do you think X's public stance here genuinely sets some kind of new precedent, for how global tech companies have to operate when governments make these demands? What's the bigger picture for the global internet?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it's definitely more than just X. It feels like a stark preview of how these digital sovereignty challenges are forcing tech giants into these really difficult positions. They're caught between their global free speech ideals and, localized compliance demands.
Right.
It feels like it is setting a precedent for maybe more internet fragmentation, where what you see online depends heavily on where you are physically located. The real insight might be how these companies are becoming almost like digital diplomats, constantly negotiating borders online.
Digital diplomats, I like that. That's a really interesting way to frame it. And you mentioned this isn't an isolated incident.
No, not at all. The sources we looked at highlight that this directive seems to be part of a kind of a broader crackdown. It's targeting social media accounts tied to Pakistani politicians, media outlets, even celebrities. And this comes after, recent military clashes between India and Pakistan, specifically an attack on tourists last month in Kashmir. India has also blocked, I think, more than a dozen Pakistani YouTube channels recently.
Wow.
Yeah, accusing them of spreading provocative content. And Meta, Instagram's parent company, they were also asked to block a prominent Muslim news page in India. So it's a broad pattern.
So it's really expanding beyond just political messaging then. It's hitting the cultural sphere too, silencing a much wider range of public figures. We're talking about reportedly blocked accounts like Pakistani politician Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, former PM Imran Khan, and even Bollywood regulars like Fawad Khan and Atif Aslam, and cricketers like Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan. That's huge.
It's a massive range. Yeah, think about the impact on people in India, their access to different perspectives, international news, just diverse information in general. It fundamentally reshapes their information landscape.
Absolutely.
And, for Elon Musk, this whole situation adds another layer of complexity, doesn't it? With his other business interests in India, Tesla's showrooms planned for Delhi and Mumbai, Starlink's ongoing approval process.
Right, that adds tension.
Huge tension. It's a very real example of how a tech company's ideals, or stated ideals anyway, can clash directly with national sovereignty, national security concerns, and have real business consequences.
Yeah, that geopolitical tightrope walk, it really shows the pressures these global tech firms face. Okay, speaking of balancing acts, though, maybe a different kind. Let's talk about Moon Valley. They're trying to carve out what they're calling an ethical path in AI video generation. Tell us about their new Murray model.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting development, especially for anyone in the creative fields. Moon Valley, they're a startup based in LA.
Okay.
They've launched this new AI video model called Murray. It's named after Etienne Jules Murray, one of the early cinema pioneers.
Cool name.
Yeah. But what's really getting attention, the core differentiator here, is Moon Valley's claim that Murray is one of the few models trained exclusively on, and this is key, owned or fully licensed source data.
Ah, okay.
They're deliberately trying to avoid copyrighted content scraped from the web. They're calling it a clean and ethically sourced model.
Clean and ethically sourced AI.
Yeah. That almost sounds like the organic, non-GMO version of generative AI or something.
Yeah, kind of.
Given the sort of Wild West vibe we've seen with a lot of AI content creation, how are they actually pulling that off? Is it feasible?
Well, their approach is pretty proactive. They're saying they actively work with partners to handle licensing deals, and they actually purchase video data sets. Think kind of like how Adobe Stock gets video footage from creators. Okay, so like a stock footage model, but for AI training data.
Exactly. The goal is to dramatically lower the legal risk compared to other generative video startups. The ones that often train models on just massive public data sets, which almost inevitably include copyrighted stuff, and then they kind of rely on fair use as a defense later.
Right, which is legally shaky ground sometimes.
It can be very shaky. Moon Valley's trying to build trust and compliance from the very beginning.
That seems like a really critical distinction, especially with all the apprehension, the fear among artists about AI's impact on creative jobs. There was that 2024 study, I think commissioned by the Animation Guild.
Yeah, I saw that.
Estimating over 100,000 U.S. film, TV, animation jobs could be disrupted by AI by 2026. So this clean approach sounds like it's trying to directly address those very real anxieties.
It absolutely feels like it. And Moon Valley says they're taking concrete steps too, like allowing creators to request their content be removed from its models, letting customers delete their data anytime, and interestingly, offering an indemnity policy.
Indemnity.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning they'll basically protect their users from copyright challenges. They're taking on the legal risk for them, essentially.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's significant.
Yeah. And they've also built in guardrails, blocking NSFW content, preventing generation of specific people or celebrities. Kind of like OpenAI's Sora model operates in that regard.
Gotcha. So they're not just making claims, they're actually putting policies and technical guardrails in place. What about the output? What can this Murray model actually do?
Well, it can generate HD clips, high definition, up to 30 seconds long, which is pretty decent.
Okay.
But what might be more impressive are the advanced features they're touting, like nuanced control over movements within the scene. Imagine, controlling just a single checkers piece moving on a board.
Oh, that's specific.
Yeah, or animating the exact way a breeze blows through someone's hair. Plus, they offer fine-grained camera controls. And crucially, it generates native HD video. No lower-res upscaling artifacts that you see sometimes with other AI models. Ah, okay. Native HD and that level of precise control. That sounds powerful. So what could this mean for, say, big businesses? Like Hollywood studios, major brands, the ones who are usually super sensitive about copyright.
Well, this clean, ethically sourced approach could be a potential game changer for them. That's the hope anyway.
Right.
It aims to reduce those legal complications significantly, which, could unlock new ways to tell stories, maybe cinematic quality stuff in advertising or entertainment without the traditional high costs, and maybe more importantly, without the legal headaches.
Making AI a much safer bet for big companies worried about copyright and their reputation.
Exactly. That seems to be the angle.
And it sounds like investors are buying into this vision, putting their money where Moon Valley's mouth is.
They certainly seem to be. Moon Valley apparently just raised a fresh $43 million in venture capital, according to an SEC filing.
Wow, $43 million.
Yeah, and that's on top of its initial $70 million seed funding. Investors include some big names like General Catalyst and Coastal Ventures. So yeah, there's significant financial backing behind this ethical AI path. It signals some real confidence in its long-term viability, or at least the potential.
That's definitely an intriguing development. It feels like they're really trying to set a new standard maybe for responsible AI development in a space that's often felt, well, pretty chaotic.
Yeah, trying to bring some order to the chaos, perhaps.
All right, so from ethical AI to the cold hard cash, let's talk about global venture capital funding in Q2 2025, because it looks like we're seeing something of an AI gold rush.
Yeah, this is where you really see the market's current obsession, maybe. Global venture funding in Q2 2025 hit $91 billion.
$91 billion, that's a lot.
It is. Now, that's actually an increase from the $82 billion in Q2 last year, 2024. So year-over-year growth is there.
Okay.
However, it's worth noting it's down from Q1 of this year, 2025, which saw $114 billion. That Q1 was actually the highest funding quarter since way back in Q3 2022.
Okay, so Q2 dipped a bit from a really high Q1, but the first half of 2025 overall sounds incredibly strong then.
Exactly. H1 2025, the first half, posted $205 billion in total funding. That's up a massive 32% from the first half of 2024. Just a huge amount of money flowing into startups.
Right, an enormous amount.
It is. And here's the headline, the really big story, the absolutely dominant force within that number, AI.
Okay, let's hear it.
A massive $40 billion, which is around 45% of all global funding, went specifically to AI companies in Q2 alone.
Whoa, 45%, nearly half.
Nearly half. The last 3 quarters have just seen record funding pouring into the AI sector. It's pretty stunning.
45% of all global venture funding just for AI. I mean, that's a blockbuster quarter by any definition. What kind of companies are pulling in these enormous sums?
Yeah, it's wild. We're seeing these huge rounds going mainly to what they call foundational AI. These are the massive general purpose models like GPT-4 or similar large language models, the ones that other AI applications get built on top.
Right, the base layers.
Exactly. So, for example, Scale AI raised an incredible $14.3 billion just in Q2.
$14 billion.
Yeah. And remember, back in Q1, OpenAI secured that record-breaking $40 billion round.
Right.
And there were other large AI rounds, too, like Thinking Machines Lab and Safe Superintelligence. They both raised $2 billion each. It really points to this intense AI FOMO fear of missing out driving investors. They're betting really heavily on these perceived early market leaders.
It really sounds like if you're building a company right now, it almost has to have an AI angle to get that kind of massive attention. But, isn't there an argument that this level of concentration, while maybe good for those few companies, could be risky? Or maybe even create an innovation bottleneck?
That's a really crucial point.
Like when nearly half of all global VC is flowing into just a handful of these foundational AI companies, does that mean other critical tech sectors are getting starved of capital? Are we creating a kind of winner-take-all environment that might actually stifle broader innovation down the line?
That's the debate, right? And it's a valid concern. While this concentration might accelerate breakthroughs in those specific foundational models, you definitely hear experts warning about potentially unsustainable valuation.
Right. Bubble territory.
Could be. If a lot of VCs are just thinking this can only go up, well, that could be a recipe for a market correction later. And it absolutely does draw capital away from other potentially promising but maybe less hyped up sectors.
Like what else is getting funded?
Well, healthcare and biotech raised $14.8 billion. That made it the distant second largest sector.
Distant second.
Followed by financial services at $10.8 billion. So, yeah, the capital is highly concentrated. Get this. Nearly a third of all the capital in Q2 went to just 16 companies, the ones raising $500 million or more.
Wow, 16 companies got a third of the pie.
Yep. And geographically, no surprise, really. the U.S. continues to capture the lion's share. Took about 2/3 of all the venture capital, that's $60 billion just in Q2.
So huge money, but very focused. Focused on AI, focused on a few big players, and mainly focused in the U.S. What does this mean for the overall startup ecosystem? How do companies grow or exit in this environment?
Yeah, that concentration definitely has implications. It probably makes it harder for non-AI ventures to secure that really significant funding, unless maybe they're already quite well established.
Right.
But on a slightly more positive note, startup M&A, mergers and acquisitions, the dollar volume was actually strong in Q2 2025. It hit $50 billion. That made it the second strongest quarter for M&A since way back in 2021. So that indicates there are still healthy exit opportunities for some founders.
Okay, that's good news for founders maybe looking for liquidity or an exit path. And who's doing the buying in this AI-driven landscape? Is it also concentrated?
Well, interestingly, OpenAI was the most active and the largest acquirer by dollar amount in Q2.
Oh, so they're raising big and spending big.
Exactly. They bought 4 companies, including, remember, Joni Ives' new company, IO.
Mm.
OpenAI bought them for a reported $6 billion.
$6 billion. Wow.
Another one called Windsurf for $3 billion. So yeah, it shows these AI giants aren't just raising tons of money, they're also strategically snapping up talent and tech through acquisitions. It just underscores how AI is reshaping, well, pretty much the entire tech landscape, right? From funding to innovation, even career paths. It really highlights how connected all these things are, the tech advancements, the investment strategies, global power dynamics.
What a picture of the tech world right now. It really is all interconnected. So just to quickly recap what we covered, first we saw X, navigating that immense pressure from the Indian government over content censorship.
Right, highlighting that global clash between free expression ideals and national digital sovereignty, and maybe the fragmentation of the internet.
Then we looked at Moon Valley, trying to carve out that more ethical path in AI video generation, training its Mary model on only licensed data, which could potentially address creator concerns about jobs and copyright.
Yeah, and maybe open doors for safer enterprise adoption.
And finally, just the sheer dominance of AI in global venture capital. Billions pouring in, especially into a few huge foundational players, which, raises those questions about market sustainability and whether that concentration might actually stifle innovation elsewhere.
Absolutely. These threads we pulled today, the censorship battles, the push for ethical AI, the massive shifts in VC funding, they aren't just separate tech headlines, are they?
No. Not at all.
They're profoundly connected. They're shaping not just the industry, but really our daily lives, our economies, even global power balances. It just reminds you how intertwined the digital and the physical worlds have become. What stands out to you in how these seemingly disparate dots connect for your world?
Yeah, a lot to think about there. The dots are definitely connected. We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.